Then he felt it, eyes on his back. Someone or something was watching him. Brian turned slowly. At first, he saw nothing. Then movement caught his eye. Between the trees stood something impossible. 7 feet tall at least, long, thin limbs, a triangular head with large black eyes. Brian thought it looked like an insect, but it would be the biggest insect he'd ever seen, and it was staring right at him. Brian froze. Then something strange happened. He felt the creature in his mind, reading his thoughts. Somehow he knew this creature was intelligent. Then the being became transparent and faded away. It didn't move, it just vanished. The forest remained silent. Brian quickly packed his gear. It was time to go. He couldn't see it, but he knew the creature was still there, somewhere. And there were more of them.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Thanks for being with me. The sDm Files, episode 15. Everyone, make sure to check out all the links down in your breadbasket. We put all the things down there. We put even extra stuff in there. It's been a big couple of weeks for ufology. Come find me, x.com/shotdownmine. We'll do the thing together. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, share with your friends. Here we go.
These Mantis figures appear in isolated cultures that had no contact with each other. The San people of Africa, ancient Mesopotamians, and even early Egyptian texts all depict similar beings. The question isn't whether these cultures saw something. The question is, what exactly were they seeing?
The ancient Egyptians depicted mantis-like entities in the Book of the Dead. They served as underworld guides who led souls to judgment. These beings are consistently portrayed not as animals or insects, but as intelligent entities with power and purpose. Even the word mantis reveals something interesting. It comes from the ancient Greek word mantis, meaning prophet or seer, someone who could see things others can't. In Native American traditions, especially tribes in the Southwest, there are stories of insect-like beings who came from the sky. The Hopi speak of Kachina spirits, some depicted with mantis-like features. They served as messengers between humans and the gods. Modern encounters with mantis entities share striking similarities with these ancient stories. The beings are described as emotionless, highly intelligent, and possessing abilities beyond human comprehension. They communicate without speaking. They appear and disappear at will. The consistency across time and cultures suggests something more than a coincidence. Either humans across the globe independently invented the same fictional entity with the same physical characteristics and behavior, or these beings have been on Earth for thousands of years.
The Y-Files. Earth's Mantis overlords. They've been here all along. Stripped. I'm a big fan of the Y-Files. They don't have a ton of ufology episodes. The reason that I wanted to, highlight this one is because they're talking about mantids. And when Eric Davis was coerced into discussing the 4 types of aliens that were visiting planet Earth at the recent UAP hearing by Congressman Eric Burleson, he mentioned Nordics and Greys and reptilians and insectoids. And when I was, trolling people on X afterwards, I was saying, that I don't think it's cool that we just got rid of mantids. Like, we were calling them mantids until recently, even though we've been calling them insectoids too. But really, we've been calling them mantids. Whenever we're describing these things, we call them mantids. So it's like, for some reason, very recently, they decided, the ufology gatekeepers have decided that we're not going to call the insectoids mantids anymore. We're going to call the mantids insectoids. And that's like a really significant and very important distinction. And then, it's basically a Wi-Fi episode about insectoids. So it's mostly I want to pay homage to the Y-Files because I really love the Y-Files, AJ, and Hecklefish, and everyone else. If you're a big fan of the Y-Files, it's kind of been hit or miss lately. This year, there was a time period for 2023, 2004 that AJ was saying, he's burnt out. It was hard to make lots of episodes. It was hard to make lots of good episodes. But I didn't notice that until he said it basically. And then last year, the end of 2024, they were doing a lot of live streaming, and I paid attention at Thanksgiving, where he did the podcast from his kitchen island, and it was kind of fun. I think that one was actually about Nazis. And, he was saying that he's trying to figure out the exact way to do the Nazi deep dive without it getting demonetized or demonetizing other parts of the channel or whatever. It wasn't really just about Nazis. It was about Operation Eagle's Nest, which is, Hitler's escape from Germany, from World War II, from the Americans, and into South America, into Argentina. And it was fun. It was fun to watch the process, and that's what he said that he was kind of shown off in the live stream, especially the holiday live stream, is that his process of kind of rigidly scripting out everything and rehearsing it over and over again and making edits and changing it and then adding in the other elements and then getting Hecklefish in there to do his lines. And so I watched those. I watched the Thanksgiving and the Christmas and the New Year's live podcasts, which were very fun, and had all the rest of the the crew in there and his family, which is kind of one and the same, right? And then since 2025, since New Year's, and I don't know, because they probably explained it somewhere that I missed it, but then they've been kind of leading with these stripped episodes, much kind of shorter episodes that don't have very much Hecklefish in it. And this is one of those. This is a 25-minute episode. Laser focused on this one kind of topic and this one kind of story inside the topic. Very little interaction with Hecklefish. And then it's also kind of got the kind of the old school Wi-Fi or Y-Files formatting, in that he kind of tells you kind of a fun, energetic story, and then at the very end debunks it or tells you the parts of the story that are debunked, or kind of explains which parts are real and which parts have been fictionalized and which parts have been kind of dramatized, which is the reason that I ever kind of really enjoyed Y-Files anyways, is that they would kind of present the story enthusiastically from the believer point of view, and then only at the very, very end. It wasn't a half and half thing. It wasn't a 2/3, 1/3 thing or anything like that. It was just at the end. At the end, they'd say, okay, well, most of that story was nonsense. We made up a lot of it. Here are the parts that were actually real. Here's the parts that no one can ever figure out. And that was really, really fun. I really enjoyed that Y-Files format. And then over the years, they've added a lot more to it, a lot more production, a lot more story. They made everything typically longer. I think this being a 25-minute episode is what I would consider a very short Y-Files. And then in the stripped part, they've kind of gotten rid of all of the Hecklefish stuff for whatever reason. Maybe they explain why. It's better for the for the audio versions that make them most of the revenue or something like that. Or maybe people really just don't like Hecklefish that much as far as talking so much, or maybe they just ran out of creative ideas for the Hecklefish side stories that were going on to make them entertaining instead of just pure gimmick. I don't know if they explained it or not. So what I would say is that I like the kind of classic Y-Files format where we do a fun, energetic version, and then only at the very end do we kind of like, shoot it down or make fun of it or debunk it. I didn't think at first that I did enjoy Hecklefish, but I do. The Hecklefish stuff is funny. I'm sure that to me, it seems like, at least from like a solo production kind of point of view, it would seem to be the hardest part of the show for me to like come up with. And maybe if you had like another person who's able to kind of, run and bounce the comedy part of things off of, or like AJ's kind of talked about it at different times. He's got lots of different projects that he's working on. He's become, he had a career before Y-Files that he was pretty good at it, and he's done the Y-Files and they've done pretty good at it too. And now he's getting involved in things that kind of cross over between the two. So he's getting to work on other people's movies in like a big way. And I can't remember the new project that he's announced that he's working on, but he's working on a big project, a big ufology related project that he's working on. And so maybe he just doesn't have the time to do as much or as in depth or as much production when it comes to the Y-Files because of that, and so what I don't really like is I don't really like them being like 25-minute, 30-minute episodes. Like I kind of enjoyed, I would turn on a Y-Files, an hour and a half long Y-Files, and I would do something else, and it would be, like I said, energetic and entertaining. And then it's also kind of like you get that conspiracy theory informational itch also, even with the debunking at the end, So, I would say I love the Y-Files, and I love AJ, and I love Hecklefish. But I would prefer more of the 1 hour kind of format, even if it had a lot more Hecklefish saying stupid things in it, But this particular episode is really fun. It's spooky. And it kind of dips into the heebie-jeebie spooky part of the insectoids and the mantis stuff, kind of in the guy's story and how he felt. They don't really seem to get into it at all. That that these things would be eating you, would be eating us. That this is how it works. If there's 9-foot praying mantises that are invisible, walking around, talking to you telepathically, that they would be then eating you. Probably like literally eating you right then and there. But if you get into the mantid insectoid canon of ufology, that they're kind of like, maybe they're the overlords of the other aliens because they created them or they subjugated them, and that when they're flying their spaceships over our neighborhoods in the middle of the night and beaming us up for snacks and sex and other extracurricular activities like examinations and crossbreeding, that they're doing that for the ulterior motives of the mantid overlords that are breeding into us, or to save themselves in some way, or are just harvesting us as a resource, quote unquote. of some kind, whether it's to just eat us or to, sustain themselves by feeding on the substance of negative emotions. Right? So they don't go into any of that in the Y-Files episode, I don't think. They keep it pretty upbeat. There's a little bit of spookiness in the guy's story in the very beginning, but that's the depth of that part of the ufology pool when you start getting into the mantids and insectoids and the cloaking and the mental powers, is that they can talk to us mentally, but even accessing a human in that way causes damage to the human. And so they've been trying to interact more with humans that they have to hurt less in order to just talk to. And in that process, they've decided to breed more humans that they can talk to or capable of being spoken with, mentally, telepathically, without it just, causing damage to the human, without causing them to go apeshit or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of the kind of documented damages that humans have been documenting in ufology for the last 90 years, right? And all that is spooky and heebie-jeebie. It is the spookiest and the heebie-jeebiest parts of ufology, really. And Y-Files kind of just like, skipped over that, sort of, kind of dipped into it just a little bit. So 25 minutes, it's really fun. It's fun and fast. That makes it required for our ufology lessons. And, make sure that you're checking out all them links down in your breadbasket, down in your chum bucket. Because we put a lot down in there. We put it all down in there. So Y-Files, Earth Mantis Overlords. Don't let the ufology gatekeepers change the language. Even if it's as simple as mantids, insectoids, even if it's that simple, if it's that, juvenile, whatever you want to call it. We already know enough in ufology about insectoids and mantids and mantids that we don't need to spend any time at all changing the terminology or arguing over the terminology at this point. Like, it just doesn't matter. You can call it an insect, you can call them mantids, you can call them mantids. It's all the same difference. They're one of the four that Eric Davis brought before the world at the recent UAP hearing. And AJ here kind of lays out all of the different parts of documentation and history that we have that kind of support the existence of the Mantis Overlords. And it's fun. And it doesn't have a lot of Hecklefish because it's stripped. There's like almost no Hecklefish. There's a little bit of Hecklefish at the very beginning, kind of generic Hecklefish, and then there's some generic kind of revenge Hecklefish at the very end during the credits. But that's all you get. And from what I can tell, that's what stripped means, is they kind of made it into less than half an hour, and they didn't include all the Hecklefish stuff. And also, I don't know why, but because they turned it on, or because I've reached some level in YouTube, but now I have access to like 600 Y-Files podcast episodes that I didn't have. Maybe they just like ported them over into YouTube from somewhere else or something. I'm not sure, but there's like 600 Y-Files podcast audio episodes available. And it didn't seem like they were available a month ago.